Neuroscientist Andrew Huberman did a great podcast about ketamine. And if you want the neuroscience, man, go watch it. It was awesome. But Huberman runs a Stanford lab. He doesn't run a clinic. And there are three things that you only learn after 800 patients have walked through your door. And I'm going to actually tell you what those are. I'm Dr. D. Bonney, board certified in emergency medicine with 25 years of ER experience. But for the last 4 years, I've run an IV ketamine therapy practice in central Indiana, Alpha Omega Wellness. And there we've treated over 800 patients and delivered more than 4,000 infusions. And every one of those treatments has been under my supervision. What I'm about to tell you, it doesn't come from a textbook. It comes from those 800 patients. And by the end of this video, you're going to know the three clinical realities about IV ketamine that a science podcast just can't tell you. Because these things only show up in a clinic after thousands of infusions. So point one, the infusion does not rewire you. What you do in the 72 hours after the infusion, that's what actually rewires you. So let's talk about how this works, because ketamine blocks something called an NMDA receptor. It uses glutamate. And when that happens, there's this burst within about 45 minutes of the infusion where this chemical called BDNF is released, and it actually peaks over the next 24 to 72 hours. And that BDNF molecule is what makes the brain more responsive to inputs, more responsive to change. But the single most important sentence in this whole lane is what you put in that window of time after the infusion is what actually gets rewired. So if a patient leaves the office and drives home in silence, and then they ruminate about the same untouched parts of their lives for 2 days, they're going to encode that rumination. The medicine did its job, but the brain didn't have any new inputs to use. So if a patient, however, does that integration work, has new conversations, starts processing what came up and builds those muscles differently, they encode actually new patterns. That's the exact reason why at our office we built ROOT around the medicine. That stands for regulate, overcome, open, and transform. So basically we provide integration so that patients are well supported during their treatment. So ketamine without integration, it's like a chemistry experience, but ketamine with integration, now that's brain repair. All right, I just want to do a quick check-in. So if you're still performing, but inside you feel flat, short-fused, and exhausted, understand that that isn't a character flaw. In high performers, chronic stress can lock the brain into this survival mode. So motivation drops, sleep gets wrecked, and everything just feels kind of numb. So I made a short guide called the High Performers Brain Health Reset, in that you're going to see key warning signs that your brain is actually stuck in that survival mode, what chronic stress is doing to the brain circuits, put in plain English, and a simple reset plan that you can actually start tonight. So listen, if this sounds uncomfortably accurate, don't just shrug it off. Tap the link in the description of this video, or just come to consult.alphaomegawellness.com/reset, enter your best email, and I'll send you the guide for free. And then read it tonight. Do one action at the end of each section, and if that guide is describing you and you're able to come to Central Indiana for treatment, there's a link on that last page to just book a free brain health consult with my team. So that's point one. The window doesn't actually reset your life unless you put something different in the window. Now, point two, treatment resistant is the wrong word for most people who carry that label. So let's talk a little bit about this. So the clinical definition of patients tried 2 or more antidepressants without adequate response, and so they're labeled as treatment resistant at that point. But that phrase, it becomes so much heavier for the person carrying it, because in a way it means that they're broken, that it can't be fixed. And a lot of people have been holding on to that label for years. But what's actually happening biologically is that the SSRIs work by increasing serotonin availability, but over time, the receptors that are responsible for that, they get downregulated. That process is called tachyphylaxis. It's the brain adapting to this extra serotonin. So the brain hasn't lost the ability for treatment. It just doesn't respond to that particular treatment anymore at that receptor level. But the structural layer of the brain, and that's where neuroplasticity and this rewiring of these synapses, that happens in a different lane. That's a mechanism, that's a different door. And so IV ketamine actually works in that structural lane, not the receptor lane. So it uses glutamate, NMDA, basically that BDNF, to really boost these neural connections. And after 800 patients, I can tell you, most of those treatment-resistant patients are not resistant. They're receptor downregulated. And so if you ask a different question, you get a different solution. So that's point two. If treatment-resistant is the label that you've been carrying for years, consider trading it for this idea of being receptor downregulated. It's more accurate, and it points to a completely different door. Now, point three, the patients that I see needing this the most are the ones that you'd never call mentally ill. So the people who actually come to us for care, they're often high performing professionals, executives, tech workers, knowledge workers. They're people who look fine on paper, but inside they're struggling. Most of them aren't visibly depressed, but they're numb. And they've been holding it together for so long, they can't really tell anymore if they're okay. Most of the executives that I see in my office have been hiding it for years. Their teams don't know. Sometimes their spouses don't fully know. They're functioning on the outside, preserving everything, but inside, they're a wreck. And so that's what masked depression actually looks like. You're functioning on the outside, you're preserving those things, but inside, you're a wreck and you're struggling. Get this, numb is not a personality, but it's a baseline shift. You see, the brain has been compensating for so long that it just shifted its operating range. And this is the reason why standard mental health systems kind of miss these people, because they don't present as like ill enough on intake. They have a job, they have a marriage, they're showing up, they're checking the right boxes, but they're still struggling inside. And that's why brain health reframing matters, because this is the population that would never seek mental health treatment, but they would actually look for brain health optimization. And language is the door that we use to get there. So that's point 3. If you've been struggling, functional, but numb for longer than what you can remember, your brain didn't break, it just shifted. And those shifts, they can actually be reversed. So 3 things. The infusion does not rewire you, the integration does. Treatment resistant is usually the wrong word. And the patients who tend to need this the most, they're the ones who would never call themselves mentally ill. So listen, if anything that I've said sounds like the floor that you've been standing on for too long, I just want to encourage you. There's a link below. If you can get to Central Indiana for treatment, we actually do free consultations. The link's below in the description. Just click that. Come over to the page. There's a video there where I explain to you how this treatment that we do in our office works, who it's for, who it's not for. And if it seems like something that could help you, just go to that next step, book a free consultation with my team. And together, we'll just figure out if this is something that could even help you if you qualify for the treatment. But I want you to remember one thing. It's not mental health. It's actually brain health. Listen, I'll see you in the next video.